masters of apps deliver stunning mobile apps to meet your unique business needs.
Venetia, welcome on stage.
Is this thing on? Oh, hi.
Hey.
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for having me here today. Everyone has been so amazingly warm and welcoming, and I've been to some conferences before, and it's not as fun as this. So let's just give a round of applause for Jakub and the team that has brought us all here today, because I've been really inspired, so thank you guys. Second of all, just a quick note on a lot of the stuff that you're hearing today. I'm hearing a lot of great themes: passion, risk-taking, story. But something I've always followed is just to take all advice with a grain of salt, because I remember 10 years ago I had no idea what I was going to be doing, and that every single path that you're hearing today is completely different. So if you hear something and you're like, man, you don't really have to listen to that, which is what I've learned. So we'll start with my story. This is 2009. As he said, I had driven my car out to Los Angeles after college. I had no idea what I was going to do. I studied television production and theater and business, and I didn't know what I wanted: producing, writing, acting, directing. So I just drove out there and decided to try a bunch of things. So I always tell everyone, if you don't know what you want to do, that's totally okay. I ended up doing 4 or 5 different internships, everything from working on the Fox studio lot as an intern, picking up this director's dog poop. It was weird, that actually happened. And I didn't want to work in studios, I learned. And then went to independent film. I didn't want to really do that. My story is similar to Karen's earlier, in that I actually was walking dogs for a while. So money was a little tight, which is why when I read an article in Time magazine about this website you could rent out your space for, I thought this was perfect. So this was my actual listing in the heart of Hollywood. Not bad for after school, I think. That's a sofa bed that pulls out. So for $65 a night, you could rent out my sofa bed. So this was a good idea, except my boyfriend at the time thought, this is crazy. You know, what about trust? This is a huge, huge thing. I confirmed a reservation, and 15 minutes before, I started to have anxiety and think, who the hell is coming into our living room to stay on our couch? This was not a good idea. So we literally, I remember, went to our bedroom door and we were like, does this thing lock? Like, do we have a backup escape plan here? If he's weird, you know, you go this way, I go this way. We had this whole thing. This is the first time, you know, letting my home to a traveler. Well, this was Brooks, the nicest guy ever. You can read that, so fun, staying with Venetia and John. They've got it going on, professional. I didn't write this, he wrote it. So Brooks was really great, but I could never forget that feeling that a lot of people have in terms of this, because could potentially be scary. So Brooks, after this happened, I made $65, and I remember saying, let's go to dinner, like, this is amazing. It was not an expensive dinner, but it was good. And so this is John, and that didn't work out, but it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Why am I saying that so much? He's married now. Anyway, the point is, Airbnb did work out. I became super passionate, obsessed with this idea of the magic that I felt in making a friend in Brooks. And so I had absolutely no idea that Airbnb was going to come into my life in this way, but that I ended up meeting the founders, Brian, Joe, and Nate, at a meetup in LA. And I guess I was, you could call me obsessed or passionate, I don't know. But they said, you know, geez, this girl really seems to love what she's doing here, and she's really communicating it. But it still came back to, well, let me just talk for a second. I want to just touch on their story really quickly, because we are talking about risk-taking a lot. And a lot of people don't realize that the founders actually, when they first thought of this idea, they were solving a problem. All the hotels in San Francisco were sold out. They had an idea to put an airbed in their living room, and somebody stayed in it. So for a year, they tried to sell this idea to investors, and they were all thinking they were insane. And so I always admire the founders, because if they wouldn't have pushed through and believed in the idea, and they ran up credit card debt, but they had that passion that ended up obviously becoming a global phenomenon, which it is now, it's really easy to see it being successful now, but often we do not see well, I mean, look at their place. But we don't see that, and so there's often days where I'll just look at them and go, thank you so much for sticking through that idea, because you've changed my life and also just the lives of thousands. So I just want to talk for a second about something in terms of, we have thousands of reservations that go well, obviously, but we actually had an incident in 2011 where kind of it's a moment that you could sweep under the rug, but I wanted to bring it up because, again, going back to trust, it ended up defining us as a company, and it was horrible that it had to happen, but a woman who was a host and had rented out her place actually had gone traveling, and when she came back, her place had been destroyed by this guest. And we remember this blog post came out, and it was devastating, mostly because imagine that was your home. And so in one way, you know, building trust into the product now has become so fundamental to everything that we do, and if you go on, you can see that. But I really wanted to talk today about how do you build an honest, authentic, trusted brand. And so I'm here today to talk about the community and how we've done that. Excuse me. This is two hosts that are hugging. During Hurricane Sandy, our hosts opened up their homes. Can I get some water? Thank you so much. So here's some of our hosts in our community. They're all over the world. You've got Avandro and Leo. This is Harmony and David. Thank you so much. Who got married in this really cute tree house. Oh, thank you. Just a moment.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. Ooh, it's bubbly. And I'm here today to talk about story and how we've really utilized story and storytelling not only in our product, in the community, and basically to define our brand, and how it's becoming more of a buzzword now, but we've been using it for the last 4 years, and it's really become a huge part of who we are. So it starts with this idea of who in any story, right? Who's the character? And so our first project was to just tell people what the heck Airbnb was. Who was Airbnb? So I'm gonna just play this. This is a 30-second version of it really quickly for you.
This place isn't mine, but I'm staying here for the weekend. I booked it on Airbnb. It's free to list, so people all over the world are posting their places, making the possibilities endless.
You can stay in a private room in a place with other people,
Or you can stay in a home by yourself. You can stay a night, a week, or a month if you want, at any price point. Airbnb lets guests and hosts choose the experience they want. And a great Airbnb experience is so effortless that the only thing left to worry about is where to go next.
I still don't know how they did that trick at the end. So why this is important is because this is where we started to define who we are, and really taking a stand to trying to, we didn't have the money at the time to, that actually only cost $30,000 for 4 different locations and a crew of 5. So I talk a lot about the budgets that we spent 4 years ago, because they're absolutely nothing like we spend now. But what we ended up doing was having them translated and subtitled at the time in 12 different languages, and cutting them into 30-second, minute and a half, and 15 seconds, and then just distributing them everywhere, on email, on social. But the first part of this was definitely this who is Airbnb, and this is what we are. And the other random thing is I actually wasn't supposed to be in that. The actress canceled because she got a big audition. So I inadvertently, accidentally became the face of Airbnb, because they've been viewed over 5 million times now. So people are always like, what's the actor doing here? But life is really random. So the other thing that we did right away at the beginning was we actually started to tell the stories of our community. We created a web series, and a lot of people don't think in terms of when you're creating this content, you can actually engage your community as well. So we went to different markets, and we'd do a casting call, and we'd have the community all come out and really have this engagement with our community, again, to build trust with them in the flesh. And then we'd also film them and then embed the videos, which you can still see today, within the listings, because our idea was always, why don't we just show the people that are doing it, because no one's really believing that people would open up their homes. And so this was proof that they were. This is Giacomo, who I filmed 2.5 years ago. It says he has 85 reviews, but he actually has 10 listings. He's at over 500 reviews. And so a lot of these people become ambassadors, and I know that they spoke about ambassadors earlier. So the next thing that we did was build an actual campaign. Again, going to the community. We ended up shooting in 17 days, 7 countries, 39 people. I think for $110,000. And we created an entire ad campaign based on the people in our community. And the key here was we had no idea we were going to create this. It was an accident. We just wanted to film them talking about Airbnb. And when we came back, they had all been talking about 8 things. We realized that they were all saying different things. So then we broke it up into 8 different ads, which I'll show you one now. And we put this campaign page in between somebody signing up their place, because it was like, let's land on a page and then open my place. It didn't work. So we put this in the middle of it and said, have you considered it? You could engage with the stories, you could see how much you could make, and then the next page was the sign up. And we ended up having a much higher conversion rate, as well as people, because they were hearing the stories, were filling out stories in their profiles. So it's really this idea of where you put the stories is important. So you can actually put them in a flow to get people to feel trust, as opposed to saying, trust Airbnb. You show them a story, you show them a face. This is one of the ads that we cut together in a campaign we called Live a Richer Life.
The extra money I make on Airbnb helps me to stay at home with him, so I don't have to go to work while he's still young.
Wann immer ich eine Reservierung kriege, wohne ich bei meinem Freund und wir üben das Zusammenwohnen.
Mi mujer y yo trabajamos juntos y mantenemos la propiedad en perfectas condiciones.
By renting my place on Airbnb, I can stay at home with my son instead of going back to work.
So that one was Be Together, and people were just talking about how because they were renting out their place and making money, they were able to spend more time with the people that they loved. And we ended up running these as ads for all these different themes. And a couple things you can see there is we gave the community vanity links, so you could see that you could actually go to the website and see these people were real. And you could also tell that our community is very diverse in terms of location, but also in terms of age. And that isn't an accident that in the same ad you're going to have these different demographics to really start introducing people to this isn't just some sort of hippie like couch surfing site, it's everyone. So taking stories off the page, it's always about the people, but we also do a bunch of event marketing, and even at events you'll find our stories. Thinking in terms of, where are people, maybe they don't really know each other and they come together as a community. We have community meetups all over the world, and a lot of the time we'll put stories there because people don't really know how to talk to maybe they're not talking to each other, and we always look for an opportunity to share stories. And the stories are not always, look at me, I'm on Airbnb. The stories in general that we like to tell are that of people that are doing something that they love and that they're passionate about because Airbnb is enabling them. And our hope is ultimately that those stories maybe inspire other people to think, if they can do it, I can do it too. And ultimately, we really want to inspire people to live more passionate lives. So, 2010, 2011, 2012, it really has caught on like wildfire. I had no idea that it was going to grow as quickly as it has, but it really landed at a perfect time with the economic downturn and people really struggling financially. And honestly, these numbers have I think these are pretty recent, but we're in over 192 countries and we're growing really quickly. But I wanted to talk to you about our brand because similar to Prezi and similar to Spotify, when you are growing a company this quickly, I think we're at over 750 worldwide now, all of a sudden you have to stop and say, wait a second, we really need to decide who we are, why we are, what we believe. And it's obviously important internally, but you need to empower all the people that you work with to make decisions in the same way. So we did something very unique, I think, and I wanted to share with you in how we decided, I think that we're different. We're not trying to be Starbucks and say this cup of hot cocoa is gonna make you love your life. I don't know if that's what they say, or Nike, you're gonna run faster with this shoe. What we realized was that the community was telling us who we are and why we are. And so this is a quick video on how we actually built and defined our brand collaboratively with the community of Airbnb.
Honestly, this process boiled down to getting as much information as possible, as quickly as possible.
We're a small team, set out to capture both the internal and external sentiments company-wide.
So in collecting ideas, we ended up setting up a moderator so that all of our remote employees could also participate.
We did community workshops with some of our most passionate hosts and travelers to learn how they felt about Airbnb and find out what was most inspiring to them.
We've asked people to compare Airbnb to celebrities or notable people in the world. What qualities does it share or not share? We also asked people to write manifestos. So what is the purpose of Airbnb in the world? What's the reason that we're all here?
We are travelers. We are hosts. We are self-aware and curious.
We are a connected community where there are no countries. There is just one world.
We, the people of Airbnb, who seek adventure, who do not tolerate territorialism and superficiality,
put aside our fear of the unknown and embrace our desire to connect.
We do not want to stay in anonymous hotel rooms. We are not just in it for the money. We are not slumlords.
Let's empower humankind to experience the world beyond place and beyond expectation.
The world is not monocultural or sterile. It is a place of incredible opportunity.
On this day, we are breaking free from isolation. Hear the crowds yell, collaborate, fulfill, love, culture.
We are committed to advancing a vision of the world that is smaller, meaningful, and more collaborative.
We, the Airbnb revolution, are the change we want to see in the world. We call for tea, we call for comfort, we call for peace.
We've asked people, what is the meaning of Airbnb to you? Have you changed? Have you become more yourself? Tell us that story.
In my life before Airbnb, I always felt very beholden. I felt very beholden to the company that I was working for, and now I just feel completely free. It's my husband and I, and we're running this business.
I get a lot of personal joy out of hosting. It's my favorite thing to do.
All of a sudden I feel like human again. I feel like more of like myself.
This has allowed me to just welcome like that traveler feeling into my home.
I'm definitely a lot more just at ease with myself, and I'm definitely more optimistic about like approaching people. And now I live with a roommate from Airbnb, and he's really one of the coolest people I've met.
So I don't think we expected what was going to come in, but what did come in ended up being truly inspiring.
So this allowed me to have the life that I knew that I was capable of, that I knew that I wanted. I just couldn't figure out financially.
It has also motivated me in my personal circumstance to get my contractor's license and start building tree houses.
I also have a little picture of my 12-year-old son, and he's benefiting from meeting all these people.
By discovering Airbnb, we learned what it was like to really be a local.
Actually, it kind of unleashed this adventurer in me that I didn't know existed.
So can you give me 2 words of what you would like before and 2 words of now?
Shy and a follower.
And what about now?
Outgoing and fun. And this has been probably the most thrilling thing that I've done.
I'm actually doing something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I'm taking printmaking classes. It's been a really nice influence on me, having confidence to do this kind of thing.
This bracelet is, from a friend I met on Airbnb. This sweater's from Estonia. I was there because of another trip I took because of Airbnb. So it's just like it's who I am, really.
And so what about your 3 words that you would use to describe how you are now?
I am me.
What's interesting about this is, I mean, we can't actually, as a company, be out there going like, your life's going to change and like you're going to transform, and maybe you were shy and closed and now you're open, but what's important is that we know that as a company, and so we took a lot of time to get that information from our community so that as a company we understood, why the heck we were all working so hard. So the reason that's important, and I'm going to share with you these core beliefs that we developed, but over 45 different themes emerged from both our employees and our community, and we use those in all of the decisions that we make, and why it's very important at the early stage to build the foundation in that way. And I call it essentially the spine of a company, and making sure it's aligned, because when you have 13 offices around the world and you need to empower all of these people to make decisions, then they all need to know how to make them. So we developed this really cool idea of, wait a second, there's us as a company, and then there's them as a community. And we pretty soon realized that there is actually no walls between us, and we say that we are very much from the inside out. And so all of the things that we do that apply to us as employees apply as well to our community, which I can say is about as honest as it gets in terms of feeling like you're going to work for something that's authentic. I think the neatest part is that we are all the product. And you can see these are Instagrams from the employees of Airbnb. In order to work at Airbnb, you have to actually use the product and be passionate about it. But I think we had this really magical moment where we realized that Brian, Joe, and Nate were ultimately just the first guests in this community, and that they were the first hosts and Amol was the first guest. And no one had any idea that would grow into this kind of global movement and community, but that ultimately we were all hosts and we're all guests. So these are 5 of our core beliefs, and these actually took, I think, 9 months to a year to develop, to get to these 5. And the copy just finally got finalized. You're the first people seeing this. That just got finalized like a couple days ago. But I wanted to share them with you. And there's definitely beliefs behind each of these, but these are kind of the 5 things that that we really find important in terms of what the community was saying. They said, we do not want cookie cutter experiences in a hotel. We want adventure. We want to have names and faces. And so we dedicate our belief of people to that. And so when you go to the site, you can see it's all about the people. Places for which there's nowhere else on earth. We want to just, make them undiscovered to places you've never seen before. Potential is, you heard these people talking about how they build tree houses now and they're taking classes. So as a company, we believe that there's more in every person in every place, and how can we empower the individual? And the key here is that we can't tell you that you're going to change, and frankly, I wouldn't want to take that on myself. What we can do, though, is try and help you and try and show you that you can be more, and then whatever happens from there is up to you. But I think it's a pretty hands-off thing, but we're just making decisions in line with that. And then ultimately experiences, and then you can see stories there at the top. It's so important to us that it's actually worked its way into our core beliefs. Just wanted to give you a couple more examples of how we use story. Every time we release a feature on Airbnb, and people often just say, well, when you just release it, we actually use it as an opportunity to define our brand through the story that we tell through the feature. So neighborhoods, yes. Also, I'm going to have a blog post up with just all these videos if you want to engage with them later. But specifically, you can see that Neighborhoods was a product that we launched that was really defining us as a local brand. We're in your neighborhood. We're helping you to decide what neighborhood to stay in. So when we position this feature to the world to announce it, we're not just saying announcing neighborhoods. We're saying Airbnb is going block by block. We're here to stay. We're the neighbor. So anytime you're launching something new, it's not just look at this new feature. It's, wait, how can we actually, build the brand or build this idea around hyperlocal? Another example was a wish list feature that we did where you can go online and you can make wish lists. Again, we positioned this as a chance to position Airbnb as an aspirational brand. Now you're at the office and you're bored, you can dream of all the places that you want to go. And so using every product launch as an opportunity to really tell a story about what we're really trying to do. And another thing that I think is really unique that makes us honest is, well, two things. One, we invite you into our world of even going as far as showing you the making of how we do what we're all doing. You guys can actually go and watch that. But also in recruiting, it's huge. We're obviously in San Francisco, we're trying to build the best teams. And the best way to do that is to just show people how we work together, what we're working on, the challenges that we're facing. And another interesting thing is all of the people in all of our content are either employees or members of the community. So we've yet to hire one actor in over 400 pieces of content. So this is actually our customer support operations manager. He worked at eBay before, and that's his daughter there. And then lastly, we created this product, video profiles. You can actually create your own mini story within Airbnb. I wanted to play this. It's the cutest thing you've ever seen. These kids are talking. I'm going to put it on the blog, but it will like melt your heart. I don't know. So you can actually tell mini stories within the product. And then lastly, this is an example of neighborhoods that we have. We even go so far as to tell the stories of the people that we work with so that you can actually make even a deeper connection. You go, where did these photos come from? You can just scroll down the page and each of them has a story to tell. So it's one of those things where you go on Airbnb and this lives and breathes everywhere, but it's because we had to define it first. And now it's what we apply to everything that we do. And I just want to give you some insight that I think is very applicable and also, again, very innovative that has really helped us is, how many of you guys know what a storyboard is? Oh, great. So storyboards are used in film. Walt Disney originally used storyboards when he made the feature film Snow White. And so for those of you who don't know, and I didn't know this, but Snow White was the very first feature-length film. At the time, the studio thought that was ridiculous. They thought nobody's going to watch an hour-and-a-half movie about some character animation. and he had to storyboard the entire thing to get everybody on board, over 500 artists, to make what became what the movies are that we see today. Longer versions about a core character. So our founder, Brian, was reading the story of Walt Disney, and he said, there's something to storyboarding that we have to apply as a company. And just as Walt storyboarded every frame, what you'll see if you come to Airbnb is that we've actually gone through and we live off storyboards. So this is the frames of every guest and every host. These are just a couple of them, but they're everywhere within the building, and at any time, you should be able to know what frame you're working on. A lot of times in what I do, it's the first frame where you're considering or you're hearing about Airbnb. It's marketing. But the product and everybody in the company, we always have a frame that we focus on, because if you focus on one frame and everybody's that specific, you're building an amazingly holistic experience. So when you come to our office, you can see storyboards everywhere, which makes no sense because we're a tech company, but really it's about adopting these new ideas. And just as an example, I'm working on a project right now where I'm working on what is the onboarding process for new employees. And I actually have to start all of my presentations with the founders with storyboards. So it's not anything fancy, but you can see I have to say this is what we're currently doing, and then I go to each frame and I say, okay, so coffee with our co-founder Brian, how do we make that really amazing? How do we health and wellness? So how do we build that frame out? How do we send them to recess? So you can see everyone's kind of a storyboard artist at Airbnb, even though they didn't mean to be. And we even go so far as, this is Spike, and Spike is an engineer on our product team. And our product officer, Joe Gebbia, actually asks them to go frame by frame. And he doesn't ask them to design their journey, but he asks everyone to take one frame that they'd like to see come to life for themselves. And Spike drew this and just said, geez, I really want to get up and start sharing all this work that I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. And it was maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, he was up on stage at a conference. They made it happen for him. And this is something that I always tell people is very applicable to real life, because often, you have no idea how to map out an entire story. But I've actually done this. You can draw just a frame of something that you want and to vision it, and you can put it up and look at it. And I've seen this happen several times. I mean, I do this. You guys can try it. It's pretty amazing, because if you focus on that, then that's where, the journey continues. So then again, coming back to stories and just why stories? Well, we believe in the power of storytelling to tell, share, and connect deeper through one of the world's oldest languages. And we ultimately believe that, yes, you're just staying in a place and that's great, but we actually think that something magical happens when, no matter where you're from, if I'm sitting next to you and we start to share stories about things, maybe I tell you a story about my brother and then you tell me a story about your brother, we can all connect on these universal things. And so what we're always trying to do is connect us deeper, because for some reason we all care a lot about each other just when we start to share stories. So you're all welcome to join in a tour. If you're in San Francisco, you guys feel free to ping me. Our office is amazing. This is a shot from the office. You can even see the stories are there to greet you when you come in. It's 4.5 years later, our 4th office, but it's pretty amazing. And you can see, again, the text there on the wall. But yeah, you're all definitely welcome to have a walkthrough. And I just wanted to thank you all today for letting me share my story with you guys. So thank you so much. That was a lot.
Thanks a lot, Venetia. To start the question round, I, for a change, have a question to the audience.
Ooh.
Who of you in the last half an hour had the idea, I should use more stories in my job, or in my company, or in my product? Hands up.
Hopefully everyone, you can use them in your life too.
Or in your life?
Yeah.
So, questions for Venetia. All the hands stay up. You have questions. No, too many. Who has a question?
I answer them all.
Also compelled by the story.
I hope. No questions? Well, it is time for the party, probably.
Now, there's a question over there. And there's one question in the back, please.
You can all just wave and smile at me, that's all right, too.
So, thank you very much for the really good presentation. What is it that really holds you up in Airbnb? What is it that you really love about it, that, you know?
That I really love?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because I see that there is some strong connection, the really strong connection. What is it that, you know, stays you there?
Oh, that keeps me there. I think I'm very lucky in my job and that I get to, I love when people tell me stories, and I think that I've been very blessed in that I get to travel around and meet the people whose lives I think have been impacted by Airbnb. And so I often think of one person actually that I met on Airbnb that changed my life. She was 80 years old and her husband had passed away, and she found companionship in these guests. And she had had a stroke and didn't even tell me about it, and I learned later that she had overcome. They told her she'd never raise her arm again, and like she opened the door and was like, welcome. And her so this one person and a glass of wine impacted my entire life, and she ended up passing away, and she lives in me, and I ended up emailing all of her guests to let them know that she had passed away. And I emailed 14 guests in probably 7 different countries, and I got responses from 12 guests saying that they were really devastated by the loss of her, as I was too. And just one moment like that, I think, holy crap, like, it just kind of blew my mind that, you know, it really was connecting the world through one individual that had that kind of impact on a global scale. And so, I don't know, I'm really excited about working somewhere that I can do that and help. Yeah, she's amazing. Good question.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for your presentation. I have one question. How do you solve issues between guests and hosts? Well, you show one issue, but I'm not sure if you told us how did you solve it.
Sure. So we have a lot of issues because we have so many thousands of reservations. So out of 750 employees, 70% of them are in customer support. We have $1 million guarantee now for hosts to protect their place should anything go wrong, and we're working on a traveler guarantee as well. And so that, knock on wood, issue has not, that happened a couple of years ago, and since then, we've really instituted a lot of safeguards. It's ultimately, though, up to the person, you know, to make smart decisions about who they're letting into their home. Well, all I can say is that as a company, operationally, we invest a huge amount into our customer support and our safeguarding and insurance and all that kind of thing. So now if something happens, you call us, and we have teams of hundreds dedicated to helping you have a great experience. But does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
One at the front. When you said, the microphone is coming. When you said we build trust into the product, and then, of course, told about the stories that you tell, that doesn't mean that you didn't build in features as well.
That's exactly. You can't just be like, look at all these stories. No, yeah. There's a couple ways you can say, trust our product, everyone. You have to build the tools, but then the other part of it is really using this kind of authentic means of showing stories helps to build trust. So yeah, you can see on our trust page right now all of the different things we offer. We have we're dedicating a lot. We really want to safeguard users.
Okay. Can you stand up so everybody can see you?
Hello. You had a really great presentation. I would like to ask, what do you think, what's the main factor in a brand gaining such a large community and honest community?
I mean, I think it goes back to, who was saying, Emily? Who was saying earlier about scratching, building something that, she said about scratching the itch. So in a way, building a product.
I think that was Karen.
That was Karen, thank you. Karen says, you know, even in the very beginning stages of anything, just figuring out the itch that needs to be scratched. And I think building a product that is solving a problem and helping people is then something that they're going to talk about. And so actually our community, and then all our job is to kind of step out of the way and build tools for them to do that. So we do a lot on, I could do an entire presentation on how we engage our community as well. But you've heard the words tonight, ambassadors. First find the people that love you and go there. We've started with the ambassadors and I was an ambassador before I worked at Airbnb, right? They found me. So start with the people that love you, and that's where you have to start. And there's always going to be somebody that loves you in your job and in your life.
Thank you. Do we have more questions? There's one in the back. There's a second in the back. He has the microphone already. Yes, please.
Hey there. You are a San Francisco-based company, right?
Yeah.
In which other regions you have like the regional offices, or how you want to get closer to your partners or customers, let's say?
Sure. Well, we have actual physical offices in 13 countries where we have teams between 5 and 15 people that are all locals to the region. And we continue to grow those offices. So we've made a huge, again, investment in operation to say, you know, moving into China, we have no idea what to do. You know, we're building offices there. So we're making the investment to be hyper-local. And then our communities on every block around the world. So again, going back to the ambassadors, how do you empower the community over here, but then also give them support where they need it with 5 or 10 locals? But we're still, by the way, at pretty low brand awareness, 3% I think worldwide, which is pretty low. Not low for 4.5 years, I don't think, but this is an interesting story because we're in a new phase now, a new chapter. This was all very grassroots marketing, you know, for very beginner stage. Now we have a VP of marketing that just started 4 months ago. We have huge campaigns that are going to run. So I like to think of though the beginning laid the foundation, but we still have a lot of work to do, for sure.
Hi, thank you for a great presentation.
Can you stand up so everybody can see you? Thank you.
Hi.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, I wanted to ask what happened in New York. I heard it's illegal to host people. Yeah.
So New York passed a law that it was illegal to rent your place out for less than 30 days. So we're sort of building this new sharing model. Definitely we're having issues in different cities about people renting out their homes. So what we're really trying to do is, we have an entire team dedicated to going and being in New York and changing laws, which takes a really long time. But ultimately what they're trying to do, and the mayor has said this, is stop people from renting out huge becoming slumlords, where they just have 15 properties. And New York has a housing crisis, as so does San Francisco. And so we actually don't encourage that either. You'll see in any of our messaging and things, we're not trying to encourage you to have 15 listings. We're saying, I'm here, I'm gonna rent out my place for 2 weeks, you know? And they don't generally knock on the doors, they've said this, they don't knock on the doors of people that aren't taking advantage. So we have a lot of legal stuff ahead, but as with anything new, you're seeing a lot going on in terms of we're all gonna have to start to share things and get used to it because, you know, the world's only so big, so, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
There's one more question in the front. Yeah, microphone is coming. In the meantime, do you still host?
I do. I'm hosting right now.
Does every Airbnb employee have to host or host?
All of the executive staff hosts. So, yeah, and I would say 30% of the company hosts, and then everybody travels. But I have over 55 reviews, and it really becomes almost more than a LinkedIn or a Facebook. It's legit, people talking about your character, and it makes you feel good. Sometimes I just go on there and read my review. No, I don't.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you as well, and I just want to say that John was probably a very silly guy.
Yeah, I broke up with him.
So
cool.
is there a new one? I hope that you have a new one.
Yes, sort of. Yes, that's great. Those were flames of love, not like anger or anything. We're friends. Okay, cool. Good note to end on. What?
I noticed the people, they put for rent different kind of accommodations.
Yeah.
I saw even igloo or tent. What was the craziest opportunity?
We have so many crazy things now, but there is a boot and breakfast in Australia. And my friend went to it, and you can stay in a giant boot. It's shaped like a boot. It doesn't make any sense. Like a boot. So some adorable couple decided that they wanted to build a boot-shaped house, and so random. And you drive up to it, and it's just like a legitimate brown boot, and then it has a bed in it, and boot and breakfast, and then they serve breakfast. I think it's pretty clever. You guys can go to see that. We have planes as well, like little planes, and yeah.
So, Venetia, thanks again.
Thank you
Big
all.
applause.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Brought to you by Masters of Apps.